Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel. And today I am back with another great collab with my good friend BD Horror over here, or the Horrorlander. And we're doing a very fun collab that I'm really excited to do. I've had it in the works for a while, thinking of it as like a solo video, and now I'm finally getting into it as a collab. So first of all, how are you doing tonight?
Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night. It is your boy, the Horrorlander. Very happy to be on here with Micah. He's one of my co-workers, I guess you could say, in terms of Goose Junkies. We've done collabs before in the past. He's a great guy. I love his videos. And I'm excited to talk about this because this is a pretty unique Goosebumps topic. I actually did make recently a video on my top five, but now I had to make a top 10. And I think that it's fun to talk about the stuff that we like that you guys may not like because you know what? We're gonna stir up the pot, so pretty excited.
hmm So yeah, this is gonna be fun. Our Goosebumps guilty pleasures. So these are, for obviously anyone who doesn't know what a guilty pleasure is, it's basically something that is objectively bad or things the community may hate or just things like that, but we love it despite the quality. So I think we definitely have some interesting takes. I have some takes that a lot of you guys probably won't like, but well, we'll kind of just get right into it. So what is your first one?
All right, my first pick is a little bit of a caveat. It's playing more so off of I know the Goosebumps community hates this one. They hate it with a passion. But even though I think it's objectively bad, I have to say I've liked it more than quite a few other books in the series of sequels. You guys can probably catch on to what I'm saying. My first pick is Monster Blood 4. Now, Monster Blood 4 is hated by so many people. It's probably the most objectively popular book to hate on. If you say you hate Monster Blood 4, like it's like the grass is green. Nobody's gonna bat an eye. They'll be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But Monster Blood 4, I actually enjoyed more than I did Monster Blood 2, which is a hot take to a lot of you, and Monster Blood 3. The reason being because when it comes to the bad parts about Monster Blood 4, I think that those bad parts did not start with Monster Blood 4. They started with the previous books. So people had a problem with bad characters. Listen, people, in my opinion, the characters went downhill since Monster Blood 2. All right, Andy got dementia at a very young age. Evan turned into an absolute brat. I mean, the dude's personality took a 180 change in the bad direction. You got introduced to Conan, who's one of the most unlikable bullies. And bullies are already unlikable. And he's just flat out the most unlikable of the bunch. And when it came to Kermit, I mean, he got the most screen time and focus in Monster Blood 3. And it was horrible because I hate Kermit. So I was already adjusted to his terribleness by Monster Blood 4. In terms of the continuity, I get it. You know, Monster Blood 4, the threat is not actually Monster Blood. It's a whole government thing going on. Not going to go into too much detail because it's kind of spoilers. But the continuity was already messed up since the second book. In the first book, you think it's a one-off thing that was involved with Sarah Beth. In the second book, you find out it's a mass-produced toy from the UK. It's like, what? Where did this come from? Who wrote this? Stein, what's going on here? This doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, it's all for nothing by the end of that book. And then in the third book, Kermit comes up with his own monster blade, starts experimenting on stuff and causing a lot of issues. So overall, I was like, first of all, they already broke the continuity. And what else can you do with Monster Blood? It's just people growing big. You already got Monster Blood on a plane with the OG episode, the original episode they made in the show. You got kids turning big, animals turning big. What else can you do? So this is a Gremlins ripoff. And yeah, it is flat out a Gremlins ripoff, but I thought it was enjoyable. I've always liked the I guess the way you can describe it, I've always liked the swarm aspect. I like aspects of just mass amounts of monsters or villains just coming at people. And when you got a threat that multiplies, the more and more it sucks upon moisture, that's really bad. Especially when you consider the planet is made out of 70% water. We are cooked, people. We are cooked. Even our bodies are made of water. We're cooked. So this is a good threat, that being said. And it's got like an alien invasion vibe to it, especially with the government parts. So, you know what? You guys can hate it, but I actually like it the best out of the OG 62 sequels. I know that's a hot take. I know you guys aren't going to mess with it, but hey, man, I appreciate it. I liked it more. And it's my number 10 pick.
Hmm. Interesting. I haven't actually read Monster before yet because I've still yet to find it, but
Mm.
And
It is
obviously,
a
I'm
rare
reading through
book.
the Orgy 62 in order, so that's gonna be the last one I read from that series. But, I'm interested to see what it's like, 'cause yeah, I hear a lot of hate for it. I know it's a Gremlins ripoff. I know Michael Goosebumps fan really likes that book as well.
Mhm,
So I'm interested to see because a lot of time I've noticed actually that my opinions kind of line up with his. So it'll be interesting to see how I think of that book eventually.
for sure.
All right, so moving on to my number 10, I have How to Kill a Monster, the episode. I adore this episode. I never understand why some people don't like it. I know it's another one of those episodes that has a cult following in a lot of ways, but I've seen some people that think the episode is pretty bad, and I don't understand it personally. I just have so much fun watching it. I think it's an improvement over the book by a landslide for me personally. Gretchen and Clark have a great kind of banter with each other. They're very fun. Their acting is definitely some of the weaker acting of the series, I think. But they both have a good like kind of that step sibling dynamic of them still not really getting along and trying to figure out kind of how to get along in this new family they have. Clark's actor, I think, is actually really funny though. He has a lot of great like wit and sarcasm to him that I really enjoy. The setting of the swamp is also really good. The house they live in is this like really huge, like I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like a mansion in the middle of this swamp. And I think those establishing shots on the outside look really great. The actors playing the grandparents are a whole lot of fun for the limited time they're in the episode. And just I don't know how to describe it, but they just have a very fun banter, especially the grandpa. But of course, you got the star of the show, the swamp monster. And I love the design of the swamp monster in this show. It's a huge step up in my opinion from how the book describes her, where the in the book is just this weird amalgamation of animals, like a bear's body with a crocodile's head and things like that, which is interesting, but I feel like it just feels like a kind of a taxidermy, it's like Frankenstein, I guess, versus what they do in the episode where it more feels like an actual tangible monster that kind of has this like dinosaur-esque look to him. And there's a lot of really fun action sequences in it. All the ways they try to kill the monster is very fun and creative, and has one of the rare downer endings of the show as well, where it kind of implies that Gretchen and Clark may or may not be dead because of something that may have happened in according to the swamp that they enter in after defeating the swamp monster. So yeah, I just enjoy the episode. It has a fun atmosphere. I love the kind of southern twang, kind of banjo music that plays throughout that Goosebumps loves doing for those kind of camp and swamp episodes. And overall, it's just a very good time in my opinion and does not deserve the hate.
That's fair. And you know what? That works perfectly because my number nine pick was How to Kill a Monster. But I have the book and the episode. So I guess there is a little bit of a difference. I actually prefer the book. So the episode I used to rewatch all the time as a kid. As a kid, I loved the episode. It's like one of my favorite episodes as a kid. And I still really like the episode now. I love it. But the book I'd read for the first time a couple of years ago. And I actually like the book more. I think specifically why I like the book more is I can understand your perspective on the monster. It's an amalgamation. I actually liked the way it was described in the book because it's sort of like a chimera representation of the swamp. Like a lot of the aspects of it are what the swamp is. Like the green fur on it. It's basically like a gorilla mixed with an alligator. It's got green fur, but the green fur is described to look like algae or moss is like growing off of it. It's also got these eyes that are said to be like pools of dark liquid, and there's like leeches or worms swimming through the pupils. It also opens up its mouth, and there's like beetles and bugs and like worms crawling out of its mouth. So it's disgusting. It's creepy. I love the design. The episode design, though, I'll get into in just a bit. It's also good. I also like the book because the thing about why How to Kill a Monster I think resonates with me. This one has sort of got a cult following, but there's still a lot of people who I don't think they necessarily hate it. They just act like the book doesn't exist. They like shun the book. They like put it to the side. They're like, oh yeah, How to Kill. Like I don't even remember what the book is about. And I'm like, you don't remember what the book is about? It's one of the most unique books because the formula is like Home Alone with the creature feature. You have to set up booby traps. You have to kill this thing that's in the house with you. The kids have to think on the spot. It's also not like Macaulay Culkin setting up elaborate traps. No, they have to come up with traps on the spot to how to survive, and that's unique. Stein has not done that formula again in another book or episode from what I know of. And this dude is always reusing formulas and tropes. So the fact he's not reused this one is crazy. And I do actually like some of the scenes in the book more. Some of the chase scenes are about the same, they're about on par with the episode, but the kitchen scene in particular, I like in the book more because in the kitchen scene in the episode, they were like trying to make very spicy food, like really, really hot, pepperish food. In the book, they straight up use like Drano and cleaner fluid and try poisoning the thing. I was like, oh, damn, these kids are grabbing, cleaning equipment and just dumping it in there. They pull out the OxyClean and just start getting it in there. I was like, okay. And the monster like jumps on top of the table. It like tries to sniff them out. It goes up to the oven and rips off the door and sends it hurtling, trying to I don't know, get some food. So pretty action packed, pretty intense. In terms of the episode, oh, and I also mentioned in the book there's an aspect about whistling which plays into the twist ending. And that whistling aspect, you find out what is making the whistling. And that's actually an addition that they left out of the episode. The ending of the episode and the book are the same. Just that creepy whistling aspect. It always got under my skin. It's like you imagine you're just sitting by your window and you hear this whistling out in the swamp, and then you hear something's calling to the house. Pretty creepy. As for the episode, fun fact about the episode was actually made before the book had officially released. So it's a prototype. They kind of might have been working off of a prototype script. I love the monsters design in the episode, like you said. It's like a alligator, snapping turtle, dinosaur hybrid. And the thing they use with the sounds it makes, it's like what they do at Jurassic Park. They like mix a bunch of animal sounds together. They got like an elephant roaring and all this stuff. I loved it as a kid. And the chase sequences are intense. This thing is horrific to see chasing behind you. The kitchen scene I actually really like in the episode because that creepy factor where it busts through the door and it's like looking around and they're just holding their breath inside of the closet. That was very creepy. And yeah, overall, it's a fun time. I can understand the gripes with it. The twist involving the monster is arguably one of the stupidest things done in Goosebumps, and it really makes no sense. This is one of the things that you got to look over. It is a little repetitive in terms of the formula, but I'm with you, man. I like this one. I enjoy it. I think there's positives to it. Everybody ignores it. Stop doing that, folks. Give this one the love it deserves.
And the one reason also I put a the one reason also I'll put the episode above the book is the book has a really dumb aspect to the twist where the monster talks,
Yeah, yeah. True, true,
which the
true.
episode leaves out.
True. That was extra goofy. I don't know what Stein was smoking with that twist. It was good up until that point.
Yep. All right. So now moving on, we have my number nine, which is the Ghost Beach episode. A lot of people hate on Ghost Beach from what I've seen, and like in most cases, it's a little justified. There's a lot of open flaws with that episode. Very, very bad acting, especially from Sam and Louisa. Some really laughable effects near the climax of it. Just some really odd, like, camera and directing choices and, like, music choices and just all this stuff. It does not work on almost any level possible. But that's why I love it. And you'll see this with this is kind of a trend with me with some of the episodes I picked. It's one of those so bad that it's entertaining episodes where you just kind of have you just gotta like shut your brain off, just have a good time with what you're watching. You can't really think about it too hard. Like yeah, Sam and Louise's acting is awful, but it's hilariously awful. And like, especially like the whole line deliveries when their whole reveal happens in the cave. And their basic defeat, some of those line deliveries that are meant to be these very tragic and very creepy and kind of sad lines as they're described in the book are so laughable because of just how ridiculous and poorly acted those lines are spoken. And there's just also a lot of like really convoluted stuff in there. I don't know. It's just an episode that just shouldn't work for me, but does. I don't really know how else to describe it. It just is a fun time.
That's fair. I am one of the people who hate that episode, so I can't talk too much about it. But it is a thing with Goosebumps where like there's that charm aspect to like every bad episode where it's like, yeah, you can laugh, you can turn your brain off, and there's like quite a few episodes, some of them, some more I think that you and I are gonna cover, where people are like, you know what, it sucks objectively, but I laughed, I had a good time, so I can respect it. But personally, me, I just again all the points you mentioned in the beginning, the bad acting, the effect, the skull effects over their faces, like printed over. Lord have mercy. And you know what? At least it's more coherent. I'll say this: the episode is more coherent than the book. If you've read the book, yeah, I don't think you read the book yet. The book is like all over the place, pacing and structure. Like if you've read Attack of the Moon was back and forth. Ghost Beach is like extra back and forth. So at least the episode's a little coherent in terms of that. Also, I never liked the cousins thing. The cousins being like geezers. I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I will say the one thing, because I've read bits and pieces of the book, the one thing I'll say give the book above the episode is the ghost reveal in the book is horrific. How they describe
Yeah.
like their skin peeling off and stuff to reveal the skulls underneath. Because
Yeah.
like
Yep.
obviously the episode couldn't replicate that because it'd be a little too gruesome for children's television, but like
Oh, come on. You didn't like the 3D print, the print over the face. You didn't like that? No. Yeah, it's
no.
definitely better in the book for sure.
Mhm. All right, so picking back up, what is your number eight?
So my number eight, funny enough, it's a ghost story. Again, your transitions are working very well for me. This one is The Headless Ghost, the book. So The Headless Ghost is one of those books that when people bring up the negatives, I'm like, objectively, they're correct. Okay. There's a lot of fake outs in this book. The climax has a disappointing twist. It's like a disappointing, I guess, utilization of a certain thing involving the book. And the very twist ending, I mean, it looks good on paper, but when you think about the twist ending more, it starts to make less and less sense, specifically with how the rest of the book is. But I have to say, man, I have always enjoyed The Headless Ghost a lot. In terms of the book, the episode is not the episode, but the book, it's dark. It uses a lot of urban legends, which I love. There are some creepy urban legends. Of course, you got about, the decapitated kid, severed head, ghost of the sailor walking around. There's also an urban legend about, I think, like this dumbwaiter, and there's like body parts and organs that come up the dumbwaiter. Very creepy, very disturbing. There's a lot of urban legends like that. And when you actually get into this house of the ghosts, it's very creepy, it's very ominous. It's got that similar feeling to like Night in Terror Tower, where the actual setting is very creepy, very ominous. I have a vivid imagination, so I'm always able to like kind of immerse myself, and I'm like, you know what? I can imagine this kind of haunted mansion, manor kind of place. And there's specifically a scene in the book where the kids are lost in the house at the upper floor, and they get to this room. It's kind of like meeting room place. They're behind the door, and they hear all these voices, these vivid voices behind the door. It sounds like there's like a party going on behind there. And when they open up the door, abandoned, just completely dusty, abandoned, not even a mite or a beetle in there. And that was so creepy to me. The idea of just being behind a door, hearing people talking like it's a gathering, and just nothing, nobody. Like, oh, that does give me goosebumps. Like, the paranormal. I don't know what it is, man. Haunted house stories in horror just always get to me. I feel like they're always creepy and well written. I'm not even that like huge of a ghost, believer or that paranoid about it, but always the writing is just good. And I actually like the twist ending. The twist ending to me, I know when you think about it more, it can get kind of convoluted, but I like the way it was done. I think that it restructures the story in a creepy way. It felt like the ending to an urban legend. So that's why I like it. I'm a fan of urban legends, and the book utilizes them. And also, the twist ending is like an urban legend. So, yeah, a darker book, a creepier book. I enjoyed it. If you like haunted house story and ghost stories, this will get to you. I think you'll enjoy it like I did. But a lot of people out there, they just objectively just kind of trash on it. So, it's definitely not a favorite for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've kind of heard that too. And I haven't actually read the book yet, but I do have Headless Ghost on my list, but the episode, so
Oh, okay. All right.
so that'll be interesting.
For sure.
But we'll get to that later on when I talk about that. But moving on to my number eight is definitely one that is going to be a hot take since I know you have said and you made a whole video talking about how you don't want to talk about this series ever again. But we're going to bring it up here. Goosebumps The Vanishing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I actually really enjoyed Goosebumps The Vanishing for the most part. As someone who did not like season one, with the exception of Go Eat Worms and Night of the Living Dummy, I think Goosebumps The Vanishing is such a major step up in pretty much every way from the first season. It tones down a lot of that teen drama. While it's still there and still as annoying as it is much more toned down, I feel like, so it makes it a little bit more tolerable to watch. While there's definitely still some very messy storytelling throughout it with what this black goo does and the payoff in the finale and just this 80,000 capabilities of this amazing black goo.
With
And
Thanos, it has all the Infinity Stones.
but yeah, that is very poorly done. It's kind of again that poorly structured thing, kind of how Biddle was in season one. It's the same exact kind of idea. It's just the catalyst to get the Goosebumps adaptations going and kind of loosely tie into the overarching story. So it still has a lot of flaws, and of course the very loose adaptations that don't really feel like the books, even though I think they're more well done in this season than they are in the first season. But yeah, there's still a lot of flaws with it. But despite those flaws, I still have a pretty good time watching it. There's a lot of really fun action sequences in it. There's a lot of great body horror. David Schwimmer, it gives a really great performance, in my opinion. Like, he is leaps and bounds better than what they did with Justin Long in the first season. Because at least they don't have character assassination with Anthony like they do with freaking Nathan Bratt. And again, David Schwimmer, I think, is just a more charismatic actor, in my opinion. He plays that role very well. I like that they tried to stick to some of the ideas of Stay Out of the Basement's plot to kind of set up what's going on, having, the Brewers be the main characters, even if the kids have their names changed, to even like just some of the, minor things that they reference to Stay Out of the Basement, like the whole reason that Devin and Cece are visiting Dr. Brewer is because their aunt is having surgery and their mom is visiting, which is exactly how it is with the book. And just the other little Goosebumps nods they have here and there that I really appreciated, like what was it, Amazo coffee shop or something like that. That there was like a shirt that said that. Having actually referencing Camp Night Moon in the Welcome to Camp Nightmare episode. I just really appreciate that. It seems like the writers did more of their homework this season than the last season, and they actually wanted to have a little bit more respect for the source material and add some of those little Easter eggs for fans to enjoy. I think that there are some really solid episodes here, like Stay Out of the Basement Part 2, Boy Who Cried Monster, Girl Next Door. I think those are all really solid and well-made episodes, in my opinion, that have some, again, really good effects, some really great body horror in terms of Stay Out of the Basement, and even like Boy Who Cried Monster has some great stuff as well. That cold open in the first episode with Maddie's face like melting away from the black goo was really cool. And while it's still very messy, as I mentioned, and the finale definitely is a bit lackluster in the end, with kind of their adaptation of Invasion of the Body Squeezers, I still think overall it's a very fun season for the most part, and I still have some enjoyment over it. It makes me curious to see what they could do with a season three, and it makes me hopeful that they can improve even more based on the criticisms of this season, like they did with season one.
Fair enough. I said I won't talk about it, so I have nothing to say much. I thought it was fine. It is a step up. There's no disagreement there. I do think it's a step up, definitely from the first season. But if you want my deeper thoughts, go to my channel, people. But you know what? Even though I say that, I am open to watching future seasons if, only if, all my reviewer friends recommend, like, okay, you have to watch this. Then I'll be okay, I'll pick it back up. So yeah. But I respect the pick. I respect the pick.
All right, so what is your number seven?
All right, number seven. This one actually, you know what? This one actually makes me the most mad that people dismiss this one because I really enjoy it. I don't think you enjoyed it also, which is okay. Respect. This one is Curse of the Mummies 2. Now, Curse of the Mummies 2 is a book which pretty much to me is always the one that people are just like, yeah, like whatever. Like they wave their hand away. It's like, yeah, whatever. People ignore it. How to Kill a Monster has that, but it slowly sort of built a cult following. I think How to Kill a Monster. This one doesn't have a cult following still, pretty much. Only a few people really justify it. And the main reason why I really enjoy this book is the villain. Ahmed is a really dark villain. He's human. He's a native Egyptian, maybe protecting something very important to his culture, his people, and it's he's a psychopath. He's flat out a psychopath, just like the type of people you see in piano lessons can be murder, those type of things. He's not afraid to kill people and kill people in horrific fashion, which may be the mummification process. But we'll leave it at that. It has like an Indiana Jones vibe towards the second half. Um, and a lot of people don't like it for the main characters, Gabe and Sorry, and they even think Uncle Ben's kind of stupid, which I can get that in the like beginning part of it. But I've argued this before. In the second half of the book, they have character development. They're put into a life and death situation. They elevate their stakes. And the again, like I said, Ahmed's super dark. There is so many horrific, creepy scenes towards later on. There's actual stakes. There's actual threat level. And when a kid's horror book brings threat level and stakes, you got my vote. I'm like, okay, like I'm actually immersed. I actually feel the tension. It makes sense. And something that the main character does towards the end of the book, I thought was very cool. And you know what? There's no twist ending. The ending is actually pretty satisfactory for the family involved. And overall, I really enjoyed it, man. Again, that second half of the book is so great. There's even a middle section where Ahmed tries to kidnap some kids. I'm not making that up. He straight up tries to kidnap kids and kill them. It is what it is, man. It's a dark book. I can get why people have a problem with the beginning, but I think a majority of people kind of hating on the book or ignoring the book is because I think a lot of people have mummy fatigue and Egyptian fatigue, especially when it comes to kids horror, because that's like the one subgenre of kids horror that it's almost always the same. The Egyptian mummy stuff is almost always the same. But that being said, I treat books like individuals. Like I give them their own shine and give them an open mind. And I really enjoyed it, man. I wish people did not dismiss this one. I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, come on, people, read that book for what it is. Give it a shot. But if you do that and you still don't like it, respectable. It's okay.
Yeah, I found Curse of Mummy's Tomb very mixed for me. It's still kind of in the lower part of my ranking, just because like I think the first like half is just insanely boring to read. There's not really much to it, and it just again the characters are kind of unlikable. I like Uncle Ben, but Gabe and Sari are very annoying throughout the whole book, and I think they're
Yeah.
even worse in Return of the Mummy from what I remember. But I think that there's some good moments in it, like you mentioned, the scene of Ahmed kidnapping the kids. That was a great sequence, really tense, really well done. The third act and the whole climax of the book, I think, is really dark and intense, and I really do like that aspect of it as well. But everything else is just kind of lackluster for me. I also feel like it's a bit of false advertising that there's no actual mummy as a threat,
Mhm.
especially because the cover, whether the cover is and everything like that. I know it's kind of the point. It's like subversion of expectations, I guess. But I feel like
It is the
I
cover
think
is
it'd be
the
kind of
mummy's ID
interesting.
picture.
I think it'd be kind of more interesting if there was an actual like mummy creature like there is in Return of the Mummy.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think it's still a decent book, and it's moved up in the rankings just by default because I've read books that are way worse. And I've kind of gone below it, but yeah, it's still kind of more towards the bottom of my ranking, but I don't think it's a horrible book by any means. It's just very okay for me.
Fair.
All right, so moving on to my number seven. Now, this is one that gets a lot of hate in the community, and a lot of people, a lot of hate, not really, I guess not the community mainly. There's some people in the community that do, but especially outsiders and kind of the normies who just kind of watch the series for reviews and things like that have always slandered this episode, and I'll never understand it, as well as a short story, and that is an old story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think an old story is one of those very misunderstood short stories and episodes. I think the short story is a bit better in a lot of ways, but they're both very good. And I feel like the reason that people dismiss them is because it is essentially a commentary and metaphor for child predators, which is a very, touchy, controversial subject for the right reasons. We don't need to talk about why that's controversial or why is not good. But, I think that's a lot of the reason why people hate this story so much is because of that commentary and that kind of I don't know what the word would be, but the way it's kind of talked about in the story is very very blatant with whole plot of Aunt Dahlia, basically where she comes over and in the short story poses as aunt. She's not their actual aunt and uses these magic prunes to age up these young boys into old men so she can sell them off in marriage to her bingo friends, which is one of the most horrific ideas that Stein has ever come up with in that very realistic way. It almost makes me wonder if it was ghost written because Stein has been very vocal and said, he doesn't like covering real life horrors and topics in Goosebumps. And that is very much a real life horror, even if it is a more, fantasy dramatized version of it. But still, I think it's just really effective with how it does it, especially again in the short story. The whole twist reveal that Aunt Dahlia isn't their actual aunt, and she was just this random lady who somehow convinced their idiot parents to let her babysit them without either of them checking to see if she was actually some kind of relative.
Yeah,
And
can we
then
talk about? Can we just talk about that for a second? She posed not as a babysitter. Okay, as a babysitter, I'd be like, all right, you know what? Fine. Their aunt. You don't know your own relatives. You can't even fact check that. Like what? Crazy, crazy.
Mhm.
Some of the worst parents and Goosebumps people. Let's make a list for them.
Yeah, and then also I think the short story as well, that twist ending, implying that this is happening to girls as well, is so unsettling and leaves you with such like this icky feeling after you read it. It's it's like again, it's disturbing but in the most effective way possible. And that's why I think it's so good, is because it lands that and is not afraid to go to that taboo, touchy subject. And I think the episode is also a very underrated episode. It's a little more goofy and comedic than how the short story plays it out, as the Goosebumps show usually does, and there are some changes. And in some ways, I don't even know what's more horrific with Aunt Dahlia, that she's a woman posing as their aunt, or that she's their actual aunt doing this to them. Like, because the episode, she
Oh
is
my
their
God.
actual aunt.
I didn't even think of that is such a good point. Why did that not even click with me? Oh my God, that is such a good point. Wow, that's an
Yeah,
awesome point. That's an awesome point. I never thought about that. Wow.
yeah. Both are equally horrific, but it's like it's hard to
Yeah,
determine which one is more.
yeah,
And
that's a
like
great point.
I think the main fault with the episode that I think brings it down is the twist ending and kind of how it is more kind of ends more on that kind of ambiguous goofy note, which I think doesn't land as hard as the really disturbing way the short story ends. Even though I will say, I am very impressed with the 90s show that they were willing to have the balls to go with the how Aunt Dahlia dies off. That is horrifically gruesome in the short story, and the fact that they actually decided to go with it for the episode is insane to me because usually the Goosebumps show would not have the balls to go there and actually kill somebody on screen. And so the fact that they went with that was, again, I admire that move that they actually kept that in. And so yeah, I think an old story is a really underrated and unfairly hated story and episode just because of the themes that it covers. And I think that's the reason why people hate it, but it covers it very effectively, and that's why I think it's really good.
I have nothing to say because it's on my list, so I'll save it when I talk about it. But it's higher up, so you wait to see.
All right. So what is your number six?
Okay, this one is very popular to hate on. Now it was less popular to hate on, I believe, from a certain blogger named Blogger Beware, who I think, if I'm mistaken, they might have actually really liked this book, but over time people started liking it less. People started hating on it. It's very popular to hate on. One of the three most popular books to probably hate on within the OD62. I gotta give it two. Be careful what you wish for, the book. This one is one that everybody and their mama is like, you know what? You know what book I don't like? Be careful what you wish for. And I'm like, I get it. I understand it. You know, it has its flaws, definitely. Very boring book a lot of the time. Characters are not good. There's a lot of cringy scenes involving the characters. Plot is very tropey. Again, what's the title of the book? My brother and sister, you heard this moral and lesson done 50 billion times in stories, even outside of horror. This is a concept that's done over and over and over and over again in fiction. Um, that being said, The main reason why I really, really like, I not really, really like. I think the book's decent. I don't hate it. Let me take back my words. The reason why I really, really like parts of this book is the last two wishes. I think the last two wishes in the book are genuinely scary. The second wish in the book is that Samantha, main character, she becomes the only person in the entire world. She's alone in the entire earth. Do you realize the scale of that? Do you realize the scale of that conundrum? That is existential horror at its finest. And I love the descriptions about how quiet it is, how eerie it is. It's got that like post Chernobyl town kind of vibe where it's like everything's abandoned, nobody's there. It's like, fading memories of people that now she's no longer with. And I've had moments outside where I live where like it gets real quiet and it's like calming but eerie. And just the idea of being the only living being, the only living human left on Earth. I was like, wow, Stein's really going for that. And that is quite the high threat level. And then the third wish is a stalker situation, which I was like, oh shit, Stein. And I didn't know it was gonna be a stalker situation. It gets into her bully becoming her like obsessed best friend all of a sudden. And there's a scene where she's sleeping in her room and she hears something in the closet. And it is the goddamn stalker. She's hiding in her closet. She comes out. She's like, "Hey, I didn't want to wake you. I just wanted to meet you." I was like, oh my God, that is real life horror. That is like, no, that's like, no, man. No, that's nightmare fuel. And the biggest fear I've ever had in my entire life is me not being alone in this house. Somebody being under, if I walked into my house and I saw somebody lying under the bed or in my closet, it would psychologically destroy me. It would psychologically break me. Mr. Nightmare videos are my worst nightmare. No pun intended. I don't want somebody being in my house ever at all without it being to me because, okay, the physical threat is there, but the psychological, the way it messes with your mind. The fact that Stein did that, the fact that this girl is literally hiding in her closet and it's played up to be comedic, like not fully comedic, but it's played up to be like a little bit like, oh my gosh, she's so obsessed. She's hiding in your closet. Well, when he was describing the scene, it was creepy as all hell. I did not mess with it, and I was like, I respect Stein for doing that. Um, it's also better. The second wish is actually better than it is in the episode for me. The episode makes everybody into flies, which is like I didn't really care for that. I was like, you know what, flies are cool. I get how that could be, a little bit creepy, but the idea of you being completely alone in the world is a lot more existential to me than like you in a world full of flies. It's like whatever. So yeah, I like the book more than a lot of other people. Again, it's decent. It's a fine book to me, which makes it a hot take because everybody flat out hates the book. But that being said, I had enjoyment factors to it. So I understand why people don't like it, but I like it kind of.
Yeah, when you say everyone hates the book, yeah, I'm one of those people.
Yeah, fair,
Yeah,
fair, fair.
I strongly dislike it. I think I gave it like a 2 out of 10 or something like
Oof,
that. Like,
oof.
I
Uh,
really did not like it. There are some good moments, and I'll give it that. The moments you described are very well done, especially the third wish. I think that whole scene is really creepy, the whole existential horror thing of just, yeah, someone being in your house. It reminds me of there's a story from, I think, the third or second Nightmare Soup book that was like about this guy who like has this routine of checking everywhere before he goes to bed because he's like hyper paranoid about everything. And one
mm,
night after he goes back from work really tired, does his routine, and after he checks things off and lays down his bed to go to sleep, there's suddenly a voice coming from under the bed that said, "You forgot to
yeah,
check under the bed."
yeah. No, that again, one of the things that would obliterate me. It would the dookie that
Mhm.
would come out would be so rapid fire. It'd be
Oh
crazy.
yeah, that's like my biggest fear as well, is just like having that kind of discovery. Like even now as an adult, I am so paranoid to check under my bed just of that fear that there's someone laying under there.
Lord have mercy. Do not make this. Do knock on wood. Do not make this change. Please keep it the way it is.
But yeah, I think, and I actually I like the episode more than the book personally because I think it just kind of it streamlines things and makes things a bit tighter. Because I think the book drags a bit because it's like a 2 hour read. It drags on a bit. It gets kind of boring. And I actually like the fly wish better than the vanished scene. I like the existential horror of the way it does in the book. But in my viewpoint in the episode with everyone turning into flies, like yeah, it's like it seems a lot lackluster, but then you think you gotta watch everywhere you step. because if you take one wrong step, you are killing people. And I think it like also I think it does a good job showing the chaos it causes, when she steps outside and there's like a bunch of car accidents and things like that. And she's like very carefully stepping everywhere so she doesn't accidentally kill someone. It's just like I don't know. I think it's just a very effective scene in my opinion and has that kind of tension and paranoia about it. And I think that the ending of the episode is also a lot better than the book's ending. Even if there's some shoddy effects, what happens to Judith at the end of the episode, I think is much more horrific than
Oh
what
yeah,
happens to Sam at the end of the book.
yeah, yeah. That's fair.
Because like in a lot of ways, the book has a kind of a happy ending with what happens to Sam. While in because it's the whole thing of she gets turned into a bird and she gets to fly off and live a happy new life away from everybody else. But in the episode, Judith is turned into a statue.
Yeah.
And you
I
have
think
no
the book
idea if
was.
she is conscious in there or if she's. It's almost a similar kind of questions to see when you have see what happens to Tommy in the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie when he becomes the Scarecrow. It's the same kind of questions, are they conscious? Are they dead? It's like you don't know really. And I think
I
that
think
ambiguity.
I think the book is actually played up more as like a bad ending because it's well not a bad ending, but it's like one of those stupid endings where it's like the main character goes through this entire like ring, and then by the end she makes a very stupid decision, and then it's like it backfires so bad on her. But in the episode they did come up into actually because the bully gets turned on. The bully gets their just due punishment. So yeah, I
Yeah.
respect it. It
Yeah.
makes sense.
I'm also one of those people who finds it really one of the weirdest aspects of the book to me, and like one of the worst aspects to me, is the fact that at Sam's school they call their teachers by their first names.
Oh yeah, I commented on that too. It's really weird.
Yeah, like why? I don't know if Stein just wanted to be unique with it or what,
It's
but like that's just like
it has to be him being unique because that's like I remember as soon as I read the book I think messaged in like one of our Discord chats with other reviewers. I'm like, does anybody else find that really weird? And everybody was like, yeah, it's weird. It's like nobody understands why it's in the book. It's weird.
yeah, no. Because like I just see it as like being super disrespectful. Because
Yeah,
like that's like a whole thing in teachers is like when you're a kid, you refer to your teachers as Mr. or Mrs. Or obviously to your parents as mom and dad, and it sees as very disrespectful to refer to them by their name.
yeah.
So,
It's like some sitcom trope. In sitcoms they try to be extra. They try to make it unique. It's like yeah, that's how it
yep.
is.
But yeah, interesting pick. I would not have chosen that one, but yeah, I think mine's also gonna be a hot take though for my number six because I have Monster Blood too.
Mm,
Because I actually recently read that one like a couple months ago, and for the most part, I actually kind of enjoyed it. It still has a lot of the flaws from the first book. Evan and Andy are insanely dumb, dumb as bricks. The fact that Andy literally remembers what happened with Monster Blood in the first book, and she still decides to bring Monster Blood back in after everything they went through in that book. And she still thinks it's a good idea to reintroduce it. And Evan, at least I'll give Evan some credit at the beginning where he is rightfully freaked out and like wants nothing to do with it. I will give him some credit for that. But, obviously they make the dumb decision later on. And yeah, it's just there's a lot of questionable aspects to it. It is a very boring book, it's a very slow-paced book, much like the first book, Sins. But in my opinion, I think I actually like it a little bit better than the first book because of the way they do the third act. Everything to do with Cuddles the hamster, eating the monster blood, and growing giant while it's stupid, it's fun stupid. And then the whole, having Evan eat the monster blood to grow giant and fight Cuddles is just a very fun climax. It's definitely one of the more comedic Goosebumps books that steers away from the horror, but it does it in a very charming way, in my opinion. And that makes the third act very entertaining and very enjoyable to me. I think that, Evan's whole relationship with his teacher is it's frustrating, but also I don't know. I guess it's just kind of that one a good example of that one teacher who just hates your guts for no reason. And I think they play that off very well. I think that is honestly a little bit pretty well written, I think. And just seeing Evan's perspective of it based in comparison to, Mr. Murphy, I think that's the name of the teacher, and how he just has this really aggressive hatred for Evan for pretty much no reason. I think that yeah, I think it also makes you sympathize with Evan a bit more because it's written in first person versus the first one, which is in third person. I don't know. I feel like the first person books a lot of the time make you sympathize with the characters a bit more, with the exception of like Haunted Mask. But yeah, I think Monster Blood 2 is a very enjoyable book. A flawed book, and it's still lower in my rankings for sure, but I at least had some fun with it compared to the first book.
I think Monster Blood 2 nowadays is coming around more to people not liking it. I know there's still a lot of people who like Monster Blood 2, mainly because the merchandise lines love promoting Cuddles. He's basically like a mascot of Goosebumps, outside of what Slappy became now and what Curly was. Um, I can't say anything positive. I hate the book. I'm sorry, people. I hate the book. In terms of the first person thing, I agree with you. First person in general typically makes characters a lot more relatable, and I like them. That being said, Evan is a shit in this book because in terms of Mr. Murphy, I understand what you mean by like Mr. Murphy hating on him for no reason. It does seem like that at points, but like in the beginning, I noticed that. I mean, Evan's sleeping in class, right? Like the dude's sleeping in class, he's daydreaming, and then he wakes up and then gets mad at his teacher. He like yells at his teacher and gets mad at him. I'm like, brother, you were sleeping in class. What are you yelling about? And then when he gets angry, he has a thought that he's going to chuck like Cuddles out of the window. And I'm like, okay, just casually wanting to abuse animals, a serial killer. No, I'm kidding. But the characters are bad or whatever. But I understand what you mean. Like you turn off your brain and you can have fun with it. But I think the main reason why I've always hated Monster Blood is because the sharp contrast to the first book, and then the fact that this book spiraled into all the bad sequels to come later. It's like that starting off point. But you know what? You like it. A lot of people like it, so I respect.
All right, so let us move on to your number five. We're getting into our top five. So what would that be?
All right, so from now on going forward, the top five are ones that I did talk about detail in my most recent video. You want to see in detail, go watch that video, but I'm still going to go over all five of them. Number five is if Be Careful What You Wish For is one of the most popular ones to hate on. This is the most popular book to hate on. And some of you are probably like, is this man going to say what I think he is? There's no way he's going to say that. Chicken. Yeah. Chicken is so bandwagon hated on that it's a meme book. It's literally become a meme. It's a meme to basically talk about this book because the title is goofy, the cover is goofy, the plot line is goofy. And people are like, you know what? Yeah, this is just one that if we say we hate on it, everybody said it, everybody and their mama said it. No way to think elsewhere. But think about Chicken. I actually think that it's a pretty decent, if not kind of good book until the very ending, where it sort of fumbles the payoff and build up. But overall, it's not a work of art. All right, people. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, Chicken, man, one of the best things you can read." No, okay, it's a decent, kind of good book to me. The reason why is because the body horror actually gets to me. Is it the best body horror you'll read? Absolutely not. But the descriptions of them having feathers sprout out of their skin and they have to continuously keep pulling them out and it's described that they feel the stems of every feather getting pulled out of their skin almost like the way it would feel if you pull out like a syringe and there's a bunch of holes left behind in their skin. First of all you triphobia people, that'll get to you if you hate seeing the patterns of holes, especially in human skin. That's going to get to you. The descriptions they have of these feathers. If you've ever had acne around your lips, it hurts to move. You imagine your lips hardening into cartilage beaks? Yeah, not fun. It's pretty creepy. So up until the very end of the book, when there's a full-on chicken transformation and it gets goofy, I won't lie to you, it gets goofy. The lead up to that is very creepy, and actually reminded me of a creep show segment from the first movie, which I brought up, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrell. That one is better. That one's about a guy who touches a meteor and he has these alien plant life sprouting from his skin. Although it's not to that level, the idea of just feathers sprouting from your skin, having to continuously pull them off, having holes, and just feeling them under your skin is so uncomfortable. The whole transformation thing is creepy. I think there is a good moral in the sense you don't judge people by their looks or by their reputation. In this sense, the villain is a character who kind of wants to be left alone, a recluse that gets picked on as like, it's kind of picked on. It's like that local crazy woman that nobody really knows what she's about. but everybody sort of just points fingers at her and says, like the Salem witch trial. Oh, we don't know you're a witch, but no, 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 she looks like one. So they start picking on her for that reason, and they do a lot of mean pranks to her, and of course it backfires. It is a ripoff of Stephen King's Thinner, but that being said, Stein does his own take on it. So I liked it for the most part until that ending, which is yeah, the ending is pretty stupid. I'm not gonna lie to you. The twist ending is Lord have mercy, pretty damn stupid. But that being said, I don't think there's really a lot for me to hate on it. I actually enjoyed it for the most part, and it's got a farm setting. I like farm settings. Scarecrow Walks at Midnight had a farm setting. This has a farm setting, so I enjoy it for that. And yeah, for all you guys hating out there, read the book. I feel like a lot of you might have not read the book yet. Maybe you're just judging it off of what you heard. Give it a chance, read it. If you still don't like it after that, I can respect it. But maybe go in with the open mind.
Yeah, I think Chicken Chicken is definitely one of those kind of books that gets a lot of hate for somewhat the right reason, but also I feel like it's a little overblown. You saying it's a meme is really funny because that is like the main joke on Goosebumps crew. They joke about that so much. And but yeah, I've read the book like a while ago, but yeah, I think it's a decent book. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but again,
Yeah,
it has very effective body horror in it. And like you got to imagine like plucking like feathers out, like that's got to be painful for them as well. Like you got to imagine
yeah.
like probably feels the same as like pulling a hair out or something like that. Like
Yeah, it's described as that. Like it doesn't just come out normally. No, no, you have to stretch the skin. It hurts, and then when it pulls out, again, you feel it coming out of your skin with that stem, and then on top of that, it leaves holes behind. Ugh, it's
yeah,
freaky.
it's just like I think like that's the thing that would have gotten to me as a kid because like I hated like transformation stuff as a kid.
Oh
Like
yeah,
for any reason, like whenever there was like a transformation scene in a movie as a kid, I would always like close my eyes or like hide away. Like just the idea of the human body transforming into something it shouldn't turn into and something so obviously not human is such like a horrific concept to me, which is why like yeah, I don't know, I like that's why I like werewolf stories and things like that. Just
and
because
Ben
like you
10.
see
That's
it,
Ben 10's whole career, turning into
yeah.
things he should not be turning into. And some of those transformation sequences, Lord have mercy, that would have been painful in real life.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, that's the thing is like, even Ben 10, like, I loved Ben 10, and for some reason, most of those transformations didn't get to me. The one transformation from Ben 10 that got to me as a kid was Ripjaws.
Oh my
It's
God.
like, that transformation scared the crap out of me for some reason. I don't know why, but it's just like the most like visceral and detailed transformation, I think. Just like, I don't know why we're going into a Ben 10 tangent now, but
Yeah,
seeing like that bulb, that lure, like the anglerfish lure that Ripjaws has, like pulsing on Ben's forehead for a few seconds before like jutting out, like seeing his like neck like split open into gills and like even the way they animate like the jaw like almost like swelling as like the teeth form and stuff. Like even a couple
turning,
like shots of like you can see like the sharp edges of the teeth like poking through the jaw. Just like the
turning
way they
into
do
turning into animals is rough. That's why
that.
chicken. It's there, man.
Hmm. But yeah. So moving on to my number five is a book that I've seen a lot of people hate on, and I never understood it. I read it for the most part, really liked it. It's still kind of that middle of the road book, but I still really think it's great. And seeing like some tier lists on like Discord and stuff that people say putting this in like the worst tier of Goosebumps, I'll never understand it, which is Why I'm Afraid of Bees. I enjoyed Why I'm Afraid of Bees a lot more than I thought I would because the cover is very goofy. It's like this it's pretty much the same exact thing as Chicken Chicken but with a bee instead of a chicken. But the actual story I think is actually very well done. I think that Gary Lutz is arguably one of the most sympathetic Goosebumps protagonists alongside like Carly Beth in my opinion. Just that kind of kid who's just this kind of loser kid who's constantly bullied. He's constantly just having this deep self-doubt about himself that I heavily relate to, especially down back in like middle school and high school and all that. And because I was very severely bullied, I had a lot of those doubts, and I still carry some of those doubts even as an adult. But I feel like just the way that Stein writes Gary is very relatable. His struggles and just his kind of, I don't know, his characterization is very well done. That kind of, yeah, I think it really works. I think that the whole idea of this like mind swap gone wrong kind of thing is actually a very interesting idea. It's been done. It's a trope that's been done before in other things, but I think the way Stein does it is very interesting and kind of basically taking a kid and having his mind be swapped into the body of one of his worst fears. I think is a really interesting concept. Just having to live out the life of something you're terrified of is really interesting to me. And there's honestly some pretty dark moments in there. There's a few times when, as a bee, Gary is like pretty much accepting death. And there's a few times where he is just like, willing to accept that he's gonna die. And it's like really sad and serious for those moments. And you really feel for him as a character. And he has a good arc throughout the story as well, kind of him learning to gain that courage, gain that confidence throughout this whole adventure. And when he eventually has this whole reveal where the guy he switched bodies with doesn't want to switch back, and having this idea that he may be stuck as a bee forever is a really, again, another kind of grim concept, knowing that bees have significantly shorter lifespans than humans do. So, if this change were to be permanent, he would probably only live another 3 years, 4 years. And I just think that's very well done. And yeah, overall, I just think Why I'm Afraid of Bees is a solid book. Stupid ending, but overall, a very solid book that has a lot of good characterization. And it's just a fun, kind of goofy adventure story.
Yeah, I've not read it yet. I'm kind of saving on to it. I know it has a small cult following. I know there's people out there who actually really like it. But again, it is that meme book, the cover, the title, people like memeing on it. But I have to say I'm looking forward to it. Even as a kid, that's the one that like always intrigued me when I heard about the book and I saw the cover. Because back in the day on Goosebumps YouTube, it was not reviews. It was people being like, "Hey guys, look at my Goosebumps collection," and they start showing off the books, and I'm like, "Well, I'm not afraid of Well, I'm afraid of bees, man. That one is that one's interesting. I'm gonna read it when I get older, and I will when I get the time. So yeah, but good to see that you are part of the cult following. You're one of the people who like it, so that's reassuring.
Yeah, and that cover also is kind of nostalgic for me because I remember it was one of the three Goosebumps books that my elementary school library had, along with
Yeah.
Stay Out of the Basement and Curse of Camp Cold Lake.
Oh, okay.
So it was one of those covers that I kind of vividly remember always seeing when I went to the library as a kid. So
Sure.
yeah. So what is your number four?
All right, number four. This is one that is, I have to say, criminally underrated in terms of a book because, again, everybody dismisses this one. It's the one that everyone's like, okay, it's not like a Goosebumps book, doesn't follow the Goosebumps formula. A lot of people don't even consider a Goosebumps book. It's like that sword that people are like, why is this in the series? But I really like the story. I like the pacing. I like the characters. I like the way it's executed. It's How I Learned to Fly. How I Learned to Fly is essentially a Disney Channel original movie made into a Goosebumps book, and I like it for that. It felt like a breath of fresh air, and you would be surprised that the main character is actually a lot more mature than a lot of other Goosebumps characters. He's got nice characterization. He's actually on the level of some of the best characters out there in Goosebumps. I would say like Carly Beth and Craig Morgenstein from Are You Terrified Yet? Um, he makes some very mature decisions where he finds out in the book through the events that happen that like fame doesn't solve all of his problems. He's very sick of this rival that he has that's always on top of him. He's trying to win over this girl that he likes, and he's always looking like a doofus, always looking like the lower guy out of the two. And he finally gets his opportunity to show off, and him and his rival start accumulating fame after they both coincidentally find this magic book that gives them the power of flight, and they start using it to become famous. He's realizing that 99 problems, but it's fame does not solve your problems. All right, it makes life easier, but he's still dealing with that insecurity. He's still being outperformed by his rival, so he challenges him to a race. And the race is for the entire world to see. It's being broadcast around all different countries because these two guys are the only people in the entire world with this superpower. And he makes a very mature decision at the end where he chooses his own happiness, and at the same time he actually lets his rival get victorious in a certain aspect. He actually does not try to triumph over his rival. He tries letting his rival get his shine, and in turn he gets his shine as well in his own way, and it ends up actually benefiting him. He actually gets what he wants by the end of the story without ruining another guy's life or kind of shaming his main rival. So that's very mature. It's a very adult decision where you're like, you know what? I care more about my own happiness than I do trying to look good in front of a bunch of people. And you won't get that out of most Goosebumps characters. And another reason I like it is because even though it deals with superpowers, it's not comic book tropes. There is not really any of that, Dr. Maniac, mass mutant comic book tropes that Stein loves going into those typical tropes. This is more so like a Disney movie where it's normal kids getting powers, they figure it out, and they have to grow up very fast because they got a lot more responsibility than they were planning, and it was all over some kind of silly rivalries. So, yeah, this one's a good book. I definitely think people should not shun this one. Give it a read. Treat it as its own thing. Treat it like, a breath mint. You get this breath of fresh air from the Goosebumps, formula you're used to. And I think you'll like it. And I would have liked to seen it adapted as a, maybe Disney Channel movie. Although the flying effects would have been pretty rough. But the story's there. I enjoy it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one I haven't actually read yet. So I actually no, I did read it in middle school, but it's been a long time, so I don't really remember much of the details. So I'm definitely curious to reread that one eventually once I get to it in the distant future.
Sure.
Okay, so moving on to my number four, and now we're getting to pretty much all episodes that pretty much are universally hated by everybody. And my number four is The Barking Ghost.
Ooh.
I think I mentioned this before when back a long time ago when we did the Goose Junkies episode on Barking Ghost. But this episode is another one of those just so bad it's good episodes because there is a lot of awful acting. There is a lot of, weird situations and ideas thrown into it. But gosh darn it, it is such a blast. From, Cooper's older brother, Mickey, the, bootleg Sid from Toy Story, who just is like probably some of the most laughable acting in the show alongside Fergie, who is Fergie isn't even laughable bad. She is just straight up bad. Like I can't even say she's entertaining. She is
Yeah.
just awful. But Mickey, in my opinion, the older brother, is what makes the episode so funny. Is just his ridiculous performance, and just seeing Blair Slater come back from Night of the Living Dummy 3 into Barking Ghost. I think his performance is actually solid as Cooper. It's not something groundbreaking or anything like that. But he kind of does sell this scared kid pretty well for the most part. But ironically enough, Fergie and Cooper's actors do a better job playing them when they're possessed by dogs than when they play the human characters. I don't know why. I think they just had more fun because they were able to just, act like animals basically. But like that whole sequence is again, it's stupid, but is again, it just kind of has that entertainment value to it. The whole cold open to the episode is very silly in that kind of best way, where it's like these two robbers that have like these very over the top, like I don't know how to describe them. They're just very overacted and they're very much hamming it up for the camera. And just everything that involves that, the twist ending, as stupid as it is, it's just leaves you on such a funny note with what happens to Mickey and the animal he ends up swapping with and how the actor portrays that moment. It's just very entertaining for me, and you'll find this is kind of the same explanation with a lot of these, but it just leaves me with such a smile on my face by the end of it that I can't help but love it for even if it is objectively a terrible episode.
Yeah, I like the well-trained dogs in there. The dogs are like the best part of the episode, the fact that they got them. And they are scary looking dogs. I give them that. But yeah, I hate the episode because it's fairly accurate to the book pretty much, and I hated the book. Again, I like the setup to the book in the episode, but just the rest of it, the execution is terrible in my opinion. But again, I understand that if you don't take it seriously, you will laugh a lot in this episode. And that dude is definitely Sid from Toy Story. I mean, he looks identical to Sid from Toy Story. Lord have mercy. It's crazy.
All right, so what is your number three?
All right, number three. I've talked about this one ad nauseum on my channel, but I'll keep it brief here. It's the trilogy episodes. Yeah, I know people are like, number one thing, people are like, I wish they would have adapted books instead. I wish they would have adapted stories. I understand. I get it completely. But with my take, I think that by that point in the show, I can understand that if, let's say, they made this episode in season one and two. I'd have been like, okay, I understand that. You know what? People much rather want to see something else adapted. All right, I can see it. But by the end of like season three and season four, that budget was getting cut season by season to the point that they had to cancel the show. Season four, identically, was pretty much like an extension to season three. It really should not have even been a thing. It was almost like on the very brink of its deathbed. But the end of season three, you can tell that they were sort of saving up the budget for trilogy. And even it has some bad effects in it, but the rest of the show at that point was just going downhill. So if they would have adapted other people's stories, I feel like the quality would have been bad. They would have been fairly bad adaptations. And I'm one of those guys that I would much rather just keep certain good stories or books in their own honor and not try to adapt them in a poor way. Even though it is extra content, it's not the type of content I'd want to see. But Trilogy, I feel like this is something that Stein should have maybe made into his own story, maybe did his own riff on it because I love it. Carl Nab is one of my favorite Goosebumps villains ever. He's so charismatic and funny. He has a genuine threat level. He's essentially like a demigod within this miniature town. He can manipulate reality. He has control over all the townsfolk. There's a universal theme about being greedy and wanting shortcuts in each of the three parts. The first one is the main girl who she's obsessed with money. She cheats people out of money, breaks the rules, and she ends up getting punished for it. Particularly with a cult-like mob of townspeople who want to kill her and eat her. Yeah, kill her and eat her as a pig girl. Yeah, for real. The second part is a dude wanting to become famous at baseball, even though he doesn't have the skills for it. It's not his thing, and he ends up getting into a monster baseball game. No pun intended. It's a very creepy, very intense baseball game. A floating baseball with sharp teeth. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. That is a horrific, horrific visual. And again, Carl Nav is hilarious, and he's a great role. And then the third part is a kid winning a sweepstake, winning a prize, but his prize is to go into Carl Nav's town, which is not good, not good, because he's planning on making you into one of his slaves and making you a part of the town. So very fun, very intense sequence of episodes. It's basically like a movie. It's 60 minutes dedicated, but I enjoy it. I love all the characters. I love Carl Nav as a villain. And overall, it's a really fun time. Yeah, it's got some bad effects, but it's crazy. It's wild. It goes batshit out of the ballpark, and I love it for that. And I actually think that they use the production quality pretty well throughout the entire episode. So it's a Goosebumps original episode. It's not based off of anything. But god damn it, man, I love it. I have so much fun with this one. I know there's quite a few people who have come around to it, more people who are liking it. There's still a lot of people who dismiss it. And personally, I don't agree. I mean, if you don't like it, I understand, but I feel like in terms of production quality and what they did with it, hey man, salutes to the writers. It shows off their own creativity and their own writing skill in terms of Dan Angel and Billy Brown, and I respect it.
Yeah, Trilogy is one of those episodes for me that is very lackluster. Like I'm one of those people who does wish we could have gotten some adaptations because I feel like there are some books that could have been or short stories that could have fit with a lower budget.
Mhm.
But for what it is, I think Trilogy is decent at best. I don't think it's one of my favorites by any means, but I think there are some very big strengths with it. I think a lot of the first part's definitely the best in my opinion. I think the pig makeup looks really good and really creepy looking. I think that the whole scene of the town chasing her and trying to kill her is really intense. There's part two is the worst in my opinion. I don't really like part two at all. I think the only bit I like in part two is the Carlsville National Anthem bit. That is like one of the best jokes in the episode in like that whole trilogy. And just Daniel Cash, who plays Carl in general, is just Daniel Cash is that his actor's name?
That is, I think, his name.
Yeah. He is just very fun, very charismatic. I love Carl. He is a great addition. He is the last thing wrong with this episode. And part three has some solid stuff too in it. I think that the whole climax of him being chased by all these like townspeople is really creepy. And it's the whole scene of him like being strapped to this machine as this like ray gun is pointed at him, about to transform him into this sculpture, is again just really intense and really creepy imagery. But overall, for me, I just think that it's a little too long. I feel like 3 episodes is a little much. I feel like it could have maybe just been the part one and part three, cut part two entirely, and I feel like it would have been a little bit more of a condensed two-parter, and then we could have made room for another adaptation or something like that. But because there's some adaptations I've been curious about, because there is like a there was a whole rumor, I think it was confirmed that they were originally going to do Abominable Snowman at Pasadena in season three, which would have been it wouldn't have been good, but it would have been interesting. And I would have been curious to see how they would have done that. But for what we have, I think Trilogy is solid. It's not one of my all-time favorites or anything like that, but I can appreciate the good things it does. All right. So my number three goes to Don't Go to Sleep's episode. I guess in some ways the book as well. I think they're both pretty solid. But Don't Go to Sleep, I feel like is one of those episodes that I think got started getting a lot of hate when JonTron made his video about it.
Yes, yes.
Because Don't Go to Sleep, it really isn't that horrible of an episode in my opinion. It's definitely janky and it definitely has those kind of low budget kind of goosebumpsy things that make it that hold it back. But it is nowhere near as bad as some people make it out to be. There's a lot of fun to be had with it. You know, the guys playing the reality police, the basically in in the episode are more of this kind of Men in Black kind of parody, are very fun. They're well acted. They have some really good kind of eerie moments where they're just stalking Matt throughout this entire episode. I think that the realities Matt goes into are, I think, a little bit more interesting than the book. Well, the book definitely goes more outlandish with how it does, like him becoming a monster, him becoming a squirrel, all these kind of really bizarre things that would have only worked in a book format. But I think the episode, I like it better because it deals with more real life things that, we all kind of have to deal with as we grow up, this like very stressful grown-up situations because the whole message is of the episode is, don't grow up too fast, enjoy your childhood. And I think it's a good message for kids to learn because it's this perspective of a lot of us as kids. We wish we could be adults so we could have that freedom. And then the perspective changes, and when you're an adult, you wish you could go back to being a kid. And I think the way that episode handles that message is very well done. Matt has all these situations, him having to defuse a bomb or him having to, get married to an ugly person, which is, can be seen as a little controversial nowadays, but it was the 90s. We'll give him a break. And this all these again very grown up, mature situations that kids just aren't ready to handle and don't know how to handle it. And I just think that it just helps ground the episode a bit more, even if they're still a bit outlandish, like the bomb defusal. But it's just a very fun time. I think that yeah, there's a lot of corny effects and things like that, like the whole guilty scene. How that's handled is so silly and ridiculous. But again, it's just that kind of charming silly that Goosebumps had. And it just works in a lot of levels for me. And I just think it's a very fun episode. Again, kind of one of those like ambiguous endings that I actually kind of enjoy, but kind of just how it kind of seems like the reality police maybe are still going to screw with Matt just because of one line he ends up saying when he goes back into the attic to gather his things that pretty much sends him back on the spot downward spiral, all because of one thing he had to slip up and say. And so I think Don't Go to Sleep is a very underappreciated episode, and I think it deserves more love than it gets.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's a fun one. It's definitely one of the most fun episodes. The bomb defusal and surgery was crazy. I was like, damn, man. Like, and again, yeah, like you said, it's different from the book. The book goes into more parallel dimension, like body warp stuff. Here, it's like, no, like you said, the theme of growing up too fast and then wanting to go back. It goes into some very intense situations that no kid can go down, and he has to think on the spot. And again, the best part of the episode, bum, 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 bum. That's reality, the reality police. They are so fun, a clear Men in Black ripoff. But it's great. I love the bad cop, good cop. Well, in this case, it's both bad cops, but they're a good duo. I enjoy them. They're funny. And my favorite scene is that hockey scene. Oh my God, I was laughing. They got this guy off the street. They're like, can we just pay you some money and get you to record? And he was like, look at this guy, $10 million. Look at this bum. And I'm like, yo, that was a funny scene, man. I love him roasting the kid.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. What is your number two?
All right, number two, I don't have really anything to say because this guy covered all of it. He did the work for me. An old story, the episode, and the short story. But I'll talk more about the episode, I guess. An old story is again Stein taking a very dark concept as brought up, but he makes it into a dark comedy. Okay, and I'm treating it like he wrote it. We're not going to go into the whole Ghost Rider thing. We don't know, but treating it like he wrote it. Takes it in a dark comedy approach. There's nothing explicitly icky shown in this episode, yet the undertones make you very uncomfortable. They make you feel icky. And it has all the right tropes of kids' horror, all the comedy involving kids' horror, specifically with the episode. And that to me is perfect. The fact that you can take something that is so outwardly sort of comical and goofy, but then you're thinking about it and you're like, oh, this is messed up. Oh, it's like a commentary, a clear commentary on, trafficking rings and, predators and that type of stuff. And I think the reason why they kept such the brutal death for Aunt Dahlia is because she deserves it, man. She is hands down one of the most, not bad as in bad writing, as bad as in motivation, bad villains out there. And it's a horrific death. It is done in a great fashion. I talked about it. That death scene is so scary, especially as a kid when I saw it. And even as an adult, I'm like, oh, that was good. I enjoyed that. Um, and again, I love the way they managed to take all the comedic approaches and keep that undertone. I'm forgetting the name of one of the brothers, but he was also in A Tale of Vampire Town. I forget his name. Complete
John.
physical. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's great. I love him. I love him in all his roles. And overall, it's a fun episode. And again, I know people hate it for how controversial it is, how inappropriate it is, but I love the fact that Goosebumps and Stein managed to take something inappropriate and then make it into kids horror. And he took that step forward. He managed to balance every aspect well with each other. So you can't officially get offended by the episode, but underneath you're like, oh, this is messed up, and I like that. I enjoy it. So yeah, all the points you brought up before are great. I really like this one.
And another thing I also just realized as well is like with her aging them into old men, she's also significantly shortening their lifespan.
Yes, yes, that's also a part of it. Like killing him. And again, like you brought up, I love that point you brought up. Is it more disturbing that she's a stranger impersonating, or is it their aunt? There's a lot of eyebrow raises, the rock style. You got to go with some of this stuff. But again, man, that's the more you pick apart this episode, the more disturbing it gets. And although the twist ending in the short story was not adapted, I understand why, because that would not be okay to adapt it. The people would be like, and I know it's a little sexist, but people would be like, excuse me, no, no, you can't show that because the implications of that are no, no, I'm not gonna talk about it anymore because it's really messed up. But yeah, yeah. The ending in the episode plays more into a goofy route. Actually more like a cuckoo clock of doom kind of feel to it, but yeah, it's fair.
All right, so my number two is something you mentioned all the way back earlier in this video, and my number two is the Headless Ghost episode. I
Oh,
know a lot of people hate the episode, and for most part, I get it. It is very sloppy, poorly acted for the most part. There's some pretty dated effects that do not look good. But there's just so many things that I love about this episode that I gotta give it credit for. It has some really great atmosphere. The setting they got for Hill House and like the whole, the set they used for Hill House was really well done. There's a lot of eerie atmosphere, a lot of great set dressing and prop design and things like that. I think that the score as well in the episode is really good. This kind of like mariner kind of sea shanty kind of music, I guess you could describe it. I don't know how you describe it, but I think the music is very well done in it. I think that, they do a really good job at covering kind of the urban legend stuff. The whole like ice cream boy urban legend, that I think is in the book as well, is still very well told, even if the twist of that is, I kind of enjoy the twist, but I get why people wouldn't like it. But the whole payoff of that I think is interesting. I think that, there's a lot of great stuff in it. I like the twist with Otto in the episode. In my opinion, I think it works a little better than the book, where the book it's kind of implied who Otto is. The episode outright confirms it, and I think it kind of adds some extra stakes to that third act that I think the book was kind of missing. And I like honestly like as much as convoluted and silly as it is, I do like the whole concept of the captain painting portraits with these like cursed paints that pretty much trap people's souls in the house. And I think that the one biggest flaw is Andrew. He is his acting is just abysmal. So easily like bottom tier worst acting in the show alongside like Fergie from Barking Ghost. It is just uh, that's like the one part of the episode that hurts my soul every time I watch it. But it's still a fun time. I think the actors who play Dwayne and Stephanie are actually pretty solid. They do a good job for the most part. I think that the actor who plays Otto is fantastic. He is easily the highlight of the episode for me. And yeah, I just think the episode is it's still flawed in a lot of ways, but I enjoy a lot of elements to it, and for me, a lot of the positives outweigh the negatives.
Fair. I know some people do appreciate the fact to try to change some stuff about the book, make it more so coherent in a sense, add more to it, which I do respect them for that whenever they try to change up the story for the better. My thing is just the execution. I hate the execution. I think the episode is all over the place. That beginning scene with all the Indian soap opera flash cuts and editing, I'm like, Lord have mercy on my soul. I cannot stand it. And I did think the painting thing was a little convoluted. But the very ending of the episode, I actually prefer that over to the book. It is creepy to me, so I do give it for that. So I respect it. For my number one pick, this one is again, a lot of people hate on it, but I did not take this episode at all seriously.
Nope.
I had such a fun time with it, and for that, I absolutely loved it. And that is One Day at Horrorland, Part Two. Part Two. One Day at Horrorland, Part Two. So much fun I had with it. I was laughing my butt off. That commercial with the monsters and the Kids Bop music, all the titles that they dropped was hilarious to me. That scene of the Saber animatronic being brought back from Camp Nightmare, it attacks that guy and explicitly attacks him, straight up bites him, shakes his arm like a dog, and drags him into the house. That was pretty good. The parents are awful. They literally sell off their kids to buy a new car, but it's so funny. The makeup horror where it's like booping everybody on the nose with the powder, and it's like, darling, we're monsters, but we're not monsters. Boop. I was like, that's funny. And it actually is kind of unofficially adapting a Goosebumps story because Triple Header Book One with Spin the Wheel of Horror came out around the time that this episode dropped, and it actually does correlate with the story of Spin the Wheel of Horror, where a family goes on a game show played up with monsters. They think it's fake in that short story, but it actually turns out to be like real monsters and real threats, what they believe to be. And here it's made meta with it tying into Horrorland. And I liked it. I like that ending where they're watching it on TV and then they turn off the program. It was all pretty fun to me. I enjoyed it. I turned off my brain. I had a good time. I have never laughed more harder than watching this episode. And part one was not One Day at Horrorland. It was One Day at Horror Park, One Day at Horror Fair, One Day at Horror Convention. It was so low budget, so low quality that I'm like, I'm glad we didn't get another 20 minutes of that where they would have absolutely massacred the plot of Horrorland and made it so damn low budget. I actually prefer them going on their own route. Was it crazy? Yes. Did I buy into the craziness? Did I go into the madness? Am I a psycho? Yes. But I'm glad I was, and I had a good time. So that's my number one pick.
Yeah. I'm personally one of those people who does not like the Horrorland episode at all. I think for just overall, it's just, I mean, it's obviously a downgrade from the book because the book is phenomenal. But
Yeah.
like, I think, yeah, the low budgetness, like in my opinion, One Day at Horrorland should not have been adapted at all. Like
Yes.
it was only adapted because it was popular, but like the budget for the show just does not correlate to Horrorland at all. It did not work. As I think Goosebumps Completionist made a joke about in one of our collabs we did together, he called it One Day at Porrorland.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, the first part, I think the first part does some of the horror stuff well. I
Yeah.
enjoy some of the aspects of the first part more. Just because the second part is so goofy, it just kind of kills the whole tone for me personally. But I understand why you enjoy it. I think if you definitely can, there's definitely some enjoyable aspects to it. But for me, it just kind of, yeah, it just kind of kills all the tension and setup that the first part had. But there is some great stuff. I love that it pretty much confirms that, or it's implied, but also confirmed that you literally see a family going into this game show thing, and it's pretty much implied that they're killed by Ripper. Like,
Yeah.
that is pretty dark, and I admire them for going that dark with it, especially because the family had a young kid. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think that, yeah, in my opinion, it's just a lot of flaws in the episode that heavily outweigh it, and I think it's definitely one of my least favorite episodes of the show.
Fair enough.
All right. So, as for my number one Goosebumps guilty pleasure, that is going to be going to My Harry's Adventure, the book and the episode. I think both of them are very fun in their own rights. They're heavily flawed and they get a lot of hate in the community, and I understand heavily why. It is a very awkward puberty allegory that just does not work in any conceptual way. But I loved the book as a kid. I read it all the time, like probably one of the most read books I've had when I was younger. And the episode is just a blast. Again, it's another one of those so bad it's good episodes that I think just works on such an interesting way where it's awful in every regard. It's probably one of the worst episodes, like top 10 worst episodes of the show in pretty much every imaginable way. But despite that, it is easily one of the most fun episodes if you just turn your brain off and just go with the hilarity and ridiculousness of it all. From, the actor who played Larry's very lame, very, I don't know how to describe it, just very awkward acting. And just to the point where it wasn't even the actor who played him who did the voice. It was Amos Crawley who played Chuck in the Haunted Mask episodes, coming back and dubbing over this actor because he did such a bad job recording his lines in the studio or when they were filming. So they ADR'd Amos Crawley's voice over that, which is hilarious because that's one of the biggest criticisms people have with the episode is the fact that the voice lines and the camera movements and mouth movements and stuff don't sync up at all for Larry. And that's why. And I think that is just hilarious. There's so many hilarious line deliveries throughout it with different Larry screaming when he's like falling off the branch at the beginning of the episode. Or just stupid things like the whole bathroom scene where he's shaving the hair off of his arm or hand and his parents come in. That whole scene with the humming and everything is so ridiculously funny. Just the kind of awful hair effects that were just very obviously just like a hairy sleeve that Larry's actor just wore, or like the really ridiculous looking like mane of hair that was kind of replicating the book cover. That looks really ridiculous. Just the whole way the plot is laid out is very silly, very messy. It is a little bit more condensed in the book, but the book I think is a little bit better in terms of the storytelling and the characterizations, even if the episode is a bit funnier. And yeah, I just think that it's horrible in every way, especially the episode. Like book-wise, I think there are some good things to it, but it's still not a great book. But episode-wise, it is terrible, but in the best way I could possibly imagine it. And I love every second of how awful this thing is. And in my opinion, it's like the biggest guilty pleasure of mine. I will always go back to rewatch My Harriest Adventure just to get a good laugh if I need one, or if I just want to watch a Goosebumps episode that I can just turn my brain off and just have a good time with and just laugh and have a blast. That is the one I will always go to, and I love it for that reason. Despite all of its flaws, it is just so great. It's a glorious train wreck of an episode that just, I don't know. It's one of those episodes that just is one of my favorites. I love it. So that's my number one.
Thank you, Micah, for having me. It was a great pleasure. I enjoyed this, and it was a very fun topic. If you like this topic and you want to see further kind of thoughts about my top 5, you could go check out my YouTube channel. Maybe subscribe, hit a like on the videos, and check it out. And especially if you're not subscribed to the Ultimate Goosebumps, man, do it, man. What are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Check out his videos. Go support us. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great night.
And also I want to thank BD for being on tonight. He was a great guest and just a really awesome, it's always fun to talk to him and get it back to our collabs. So thank you so much for being able to come on here. And I hope we can do more collabs in the future. Looking forward to getting back into Goose Junkies. So yeah, that's all I got to have for today's video. So I want to thank everybody so much for subscribing and just watching the video. If you like the video, please comment down below your list of your Goosebumps guilty pleasures. I would love to hear them. And I'll see you next time. Bye.